Hey everyone, Cosmic Castaway here, and welcome to Let's Talk About, the show where I ramble on about various video game topics. And today we're going to be talking about a subject that has actually upset me this past week, and that is the closing of Visceral Games. Now, Visceral Games is one of the in-house studios of Electronic Arts. They actually started out as EA Redwood Games. Now, Visceral Games has been around for a number of years, but probably their most well-known title is the Dead Space series, but they also created some other games like Dante's Inferno, 007 Everything or Nothing, and their most recent title that was entirely developed by them was the spin-off for Battlefield Hardline. So the talented men and women of Visceral Games have made a great many titles over the years, and it's easy to say that the Dead Space series is probably the most beloved of all their works, and definitely their most well-known. And recently, Electronic Arts has been trying to make a big push for their Star Wars franchise ever since Disney let them make video games based off of the Star Wars license. And as such, Visceral Games was one of the studios that was working on a Star Wars game. And the game actually sounded like it was going to be something very interesting. It was going to be a story-driven Star Wars experience with the creative director of Amy Hennings, a great writer for video games. She worked on the Uncharted series. She's a fantastic woman who does great work on everything she works on. A couple of days ago, much to the shock of everyone, including myself, EA shut down Visceral Games and essentially transferred the game concept over to another studio as they want to abandon the idea of a story-driven single-player Star Wars game. And this is EA's official statement on the Star Wars game, in that they want it to be a broader experience that allows for more variety and player agency, leaning into the capabilities of our Frostbite engine and reimagining central elements of the game to give players a Star Wars adventure of greater depth and breadth to explore. So in so many words, what that essentially is saying is EA wasn't fond of the direction that Visceral Games was taking the game in. They said, it's too linear, it's too story-driven, players want more open-world sandbox games, and they want multiplayer elements. Now, of course, this is me just assuming what EA's thinking here. This is not exactly what they're saying, but based on their past decisions, this kind of makes sense. They're trying to push for more open world design, more multiplayer co-op elements, and that's not what Visceral Games was doing. They were trying to create a solid single player experience, and it may have well been linear, but this is something that bugs me, is linear game design is not a bad thing, and it always bugs me when people mark linearity as a con of a game, because some of my all-time favorite games are linear adventures. There's nothing wrong with a linear game so long as it's well-designed and makes for a fantastic ride. One of the reasons people love the Dead Space games is those are linear games, but man oh man, does it take you on a roller coaster ride of horror-filled adventure. Anyways, the reason why this news upset me earlier this week is because I do enjoy the work of Visceral Games. I've enjoyed the Dead Space games. I even enjoyed Dead Space 3. I did a video on why I like that game, even though it's a bit more divisive among the fans. And I am interested in checking out Dante's Inferno eventually. I know that one was a bit more divisive, but I remember the lead up to that game. It looked like Visceral Games were putting all their heart and soul, so to speak, into making it this really gritty, disturbing adventure into the depths of hell. And they have done a lot of great work over the years. And it's sad that Visceral Games are ending up the same way that so many other studios under EA's umbrella, so to speak, have ended up. There's Maxis Studios, the creators of SimCity, and probably even more popular, the Sims franchise. And then there's also Bullfrog, who worked on some older titles like Syndicates and the popular Dungeon Keeper series. And then there's the beloved Westwood Studios. This one really hurts for me because I grew up playing games like Command & Conquer and Red Alert. So when Westwood Studios was closed down by EA, that also really upset me too because I love them. And another great studio that EA bought that I loved was Pandemic. They made the original Star Wars Battlefront, which is still one of my favorite multiplayer games to this day. As much as I enjoy the new one by DICE, it can't really hold a candle to what Pandemic did back in the day with the original Battlefront. Battlefront had more game modes, more engaging multiplayer elements, and it wasn't so much of a grind to get into the experience. Not to say that the new Battlefront was a terrible game, but even though I enjoyed it, I don't think it was as good as the original two games that Pandemic did. And another great game Pandemic did was the Mercenaries games, especially the first one I know was lots and lots of fun. please don't misunderstand me. I don't hate EA, but I really question their decisions sometimes, because this right here, it hurts. It really does. I really liked Visceral Games, and once I became more familiar with their work over the last couple of years, I've grown to like them even more. And of all the new Star Wars projects that have been in development, the one they were working on was the one I was most excited for. And now EA, in addition to scrapping the studio, is also basically changing the game they were working on into another open world, possibly multiplayer game. And let me be clear, it's not that I hate that type of gameplay style, but it's becoming a bit abundant over the last couple of years. It feels like a lot of games that are coming out are open world games, and that's why I was excited that Visceral was giving us a more story-driven single-player experience. What I'm trying to say is, please stop doing this to your studios, EA. Every time it seems like you get one of the great beloved studios under you, it seems like only a couple years later, or in the case of Pandemic, only 1 year later, you shut them down, and those poor people have lost their jobs, and they now have to find other avenues of work through either the studios or just new work entirely. And again, I know that is part of business works, and I don't claim to be a businessman, but as a consumer and someone who enjoys video games and enjoys all the hard work that the people who make them put into them, stuff like this makes you look really bad. And Electronic Arts, I really feel like you need to treat your studios with a lot more care, because I'm actually now scared for studios like BioWare. What if Anthem doesn't turn out to be the breakout hit you're hoping it will be? That's a game that sounds exactly like what EA mentioned in their statement, a wide open world to explore, built on the Frostbite engine, with more player features. And BioWare are known for their great single-player RPGs, and it's very possible Anthem will turn out to be great, but there is a lingering fear in the back of my mind that if Anthem doesn't work out, will BioWare meet the same end as Visceral Games and all the other studios that have come before? I don't want to be a fearmonger or anything, but the thought has occurred, and I'm a little concerned. Hopefully it will never come to that. Hopefully BioWare will be extremely successful in all that they do. But going back to the main issue here, the closing of Visceral Games. To all the men and women that work there, I am so sorry for the loss of your jobs. And I want you to know that myself and many other people have loved the work that you've done for the video game community over the years. You've created one of the most popular horror franchises in the last decade, Dead Space, which many people still play to this day. And it's my hope that you'll be able to find work with other studios and other companies in the very near future, and that you'll be treated even better than you were before by Electronic Arts. My heart really does go out to you, and I wish you and your families the best of luck. So thank you again, Visceral Games. We're gonna miss you. So thank you for listening to another ramble by me on Let's Talk About. What are your thoughts on the closing of Visceral Games and EA's treatment of studios? And what do you think about Visceral's titles that they've created over the year? What are some of your favorites? Please feel free to share in the comments below. As for what's coming up on this channel, we have the Evil Within 2 Game Reflections video coming just in time for Halloween, so please look forward to that. And until next time, keep having great adventures, everyone!